Calaroga Shark Media.
Johnny Mac is grouchy today, and hello, I am Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news, a daily briefing on stand-up comedy, comedians, and the comedy industry, which is a phrase you might say if you were retraining the Spotify algorithm, but we don't have time for that right now. I don't know if you're aware, as we head to 2026, there are new rules for podcasters, and podcasters must broadcast all statements from the President of the United States, so let's get that out of the way. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Hola, amigos. Yo soy su nuevo presidente, el señor Donald J. Trump. Your ex-presidente, el señor Maduro, is no longer your presidente. Anyway, we're going to make Venezuela grande again. Mucho grande. El bigger y el better than ever before.
Late Night had a lot to say about that. Jimmy Kimmel said after months of escalation, Trump decided Maduro had to go. And yeah, he's a criminal and a dictator who's driven his country into financial ruin while he and his family have lined their own pockets. But Maduro's no saint either. Great joke. Colbert said, oh, Venezuela. Evidently, when he says America first, he means alphabetically. Jimmy Kimmel again. He can't even run the country he runs. This is like if JCPenney decided to buy Sears. Kimmel, if you're wondering how bad the Epstein files are, it turns out they're invade Venezuela bad. Great joke. Fallon said, yeah, the news took everybody by surprise. When I heard there was an operation to extract a president, I just assumed Trump got stuck in his tanning bed. Fallon again, yep, Trump ordered the operation without getting congressional approval, and he watched it from a Mar-a-Lago situation room, which means there's a chance Vanilla Ice knew about the mission before Congress did. The president and I don't agree on all the issues. One of the issues we do agree on is make late night great again, and here's some more Kimmel versus Trump stuff, but on this one, I'm going to side with the president, and I'll tell you why. Kimmel was talking about the ratings for Trump hosting the Kennedy Center honors. Kimmel said, after boasting what a great host he is and how much better he is than I am, and how huge his ratings would be, Trump hosted the lowest-rated Kennedy Center honors telecast of all time. Let me tell you something. I'd hate to be the White House intern who had to tear that headline out of all the papers and eat them. You know, as I recall, he would step down if this happened. He said, if I can't beat out Jimmy Kimmel, then I don't think I should be president. Well, hey, a deal's a deal. Back to Mar-a-Lago you go. Now, here's where I side with the president. Jimmy Kimmel has never hosted the Kennedy Center honors. So, as far as we know, Trump is indeed better at hosting the Kennedy Center honors than Jimmy Kimmel is. Jimmy, you're going to have to host the thing and see if you can beat him. Team Trump on that one. We'll get out of Late Night in a second, but Late Nighter did report that Jimmy Kimmel Live will only host musical guests twice a week. I'm not a regular watcher of that show. Were they doing bands every night? That's crazy. Why would you do that? Even twice a week seems crazy. Back in the days of Late Night with David Letterman, I didn't like when he had bands on. Kimmel, backstage at the Critics' Choice Awards, said there will always be late night talk shows, but discuss the evolution. There are some shows that are called late night talk shows that aren't late night talk shows that still have the same format, and maybe we need a different term for them. But it seems to me it's one of the cheapest forms of broadcasting. CBS might disagree. And it would be very surprising to me if it went away entirely. CBS might disagree. Maybe it won't be as big. Maybe there won't be a big band welcoming the host to the stage. Maybe there won't be 15 writers. But I think there'll be some version of late night talk show. And in a way, maybe it'll be better because maybe there'll be more opportunities for more people of various backgrounds and ages and niche programming that I think could be a lot of fun to watch. New topic from mysanantonio.com. They got my attention with this headline: a unicorn, a cow, and an Eric Cartman impersonator walk into a bar or protest outside a comedy club. It seems people down in Austin, Texas are not enjoying Joe Rogan operating a comedy club, and they're all wigged about it. And this is how they spent their New Year's Eve, protesting the existence of Joe Rogan's comedy club. Reddit user apologized to the bees, posted a video of a crowd of people gathered outside Joe Rogan's comedy club, decked out in costumes with anti-Rogan signs. The protesters were joined by people wearing a South Park Cartman costume, a unicorn costume, and also an inflatable cow. At Connor K12 wrote, funnier than anything inside the building. Another Redditor wrote, I hate that these a-holes from out of state. Rogan moved in and claimed the entirety of the Austin comedy scene. The dude owns one comedy venue, not all of them. A different user encourages us to support venues like Cold Town and Cap City, adding, keep Austin funny without Diet Alex Jones. Out today on Netflix, Marcello Hernandez, American Boy. At this point in the script, I would tell you some stuff about Marcello Hernandez, but there didn't seem to be any advance press about it, and I did look. We'll see if Marcello did anything today. There was a profile in late December in the New York Times that was kind of boring. I've looked at it 3 times and can't find anything interesting to pull out of it. Anyway, Marcello Hernandez on Netflix today. I'm sure you're looking forward to that. This weekend, Nikki Glaser hosts the Golden Globes. Her second time hosting the program. Last year, she did not make any terrible, horrible jokes about Taylor Swift. Who's Nikki finding funny these days? She told Upworthy, as of late, Rachel Feinstein, David Spade, Martin Short as Jiminy Glick, Tim Robinson, and Chris Fleming. Good pick on Chris Fleming there. I also loved Jim Norton's latest special on YouTube, Unconceivable. Upworthy asked Nikki Glaser, no matter how popular you get, is there one thing about you that will never change? Nikki said, I don't think people really ever change. I try. I'm always holding out hope that I'll somehow conquer my imposter syndrome and overall low self-esteem. I know some artists and comedians argue that it serves their work to be depressed or anxious, but I feel like I've already mined all my insecurities from material in the first 2 decades of my career. I like to change into someone who's more confident, but don't we all? I don't want to ever think that I'm better than anyone else, but I'd like to lose the core belief that I'm worse than others. I think Nikki's going to have a good weekend with the Golden Globes. In this week's comedy stock market, she has announced a tour. The Stunning Tour will take Nikki Glaser around North America, as well as Paris, London, and Dublin. Kicks off the 16th at the Coliseum Theatre at Caesar's Palace, then off to Paris, London, Dublin, and Atlantic City. Imagine going to Paris, London, Dublin, and then Atlantic City. That's a bit of a letdown, I'm telling you. The tour wraps up in December on the 2nd at the MGM Music Hall at Fenway in Boston. I'm getting old. I don't know what we're doing anymore. There's too much media out there. Bert Kreischer was on the Dumb Blonde podcast speaking to Bunny XO. Kreischer's 53, so he's not that much younger than I am. Bert just started talking about his sex life. He said, Leanne's going to kill me, but I told her, I was like, porn wasn't doing it for me. I think it's because she's so authentically her, and the things that she has turn me on. I said, hey, I need close-up pictures of your body parts for me. So I have a hidden folder, and they're just pictures. You can't see Leanne's face, but they're pictures of her body parts. Amy Schumer might disagree, but some things in a marriage are just between the people in the marriage. You don't have to go on a podcast and tell us that. Bert said, I didn't think I was going to be attracted to someone like Leanne. When I got naked with her for the first time, I'd never experienced that feeling. I don't know if it makes total sense, but it felt like she was sharing a secret with me. I felt like she didn't get naked with a lot of people. That energy I liked. I think we're past peak Kreischer now. I just have that sense. As we all know, Kevin Hart likes to work, isn't afraid of finding a way to make money. Well, listen to this one. Kevin Hart announced a deal with Authentic Brands, giving Authentic Brands the rights to license Kevin Hart's name. Hart and ABG will co-manage the, quote, Kevin Hart, unquote, brand, bringing it to new verticals and business areas, including consumer products, digital platforms, and live experiences. Kevin Hart, in a statement, said, this partnership is about acceleration, growth, and diversification. I've spent years building businesses and creating opportunities, and joining Authentic gives me the platform and global infrastructure to take my brand to the next level. Becoming a shareholder allows me to co-own some of the most recognizable IP of all time while building my own brand legacy. Kevin, listen to yourself. You're talking about IP and brand legacy. Listen to yourself, dude. All the cool just went out of the room. It's gone. You have enough money. This might actually be worse than playing Riyadh. At least Riyadh, you're doing a comedy show and you're getting paid. What are you doing here? Kevin said, I want the Hart name to live on for generations to come and be something that my grandkids and their grandkids will be able to be proud of. Then there's some quotes here from the... I can't even with this. Ugh. Actually, I was going to bounce this next one, but it fits very nicely here. This was an opinion piece on Vulture. They wrote, remember the Riyadh Comedy Festival? Back in September, it was all anyone interested in comedy talked about. There was David Cross's blog post calling out Riyadh performers like Dave Chappelle, Louis C.K., Bill Burr, and Jim Jeffries. Cross asking, how can any of us take any of you seriously again? Andrew Schultz firing back at David Cross by referencing an instance of David Cross using the N-word. Bill Burr's rant on Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, where he referred to people criticizing festival performers as sanctimonious C-words who don't give a hoot. This piece then gets into other beefs. Mark Maron calling out the Roganverse while promoting his new special. Andrew Schultz going after Andrew Santino on Rogan for simply saying he didn't like the Austin comedy scene. A video called Mark Norman's Problem with Eric Andre has 430,000 views. Schultz labeling Maron an a-hole on Rogan by telling a story about Maron being mean to Jon Stewart in the 90s. A story Maron himself has been sharing freely and openly since 2013. Vulture writes, one of the most memorable reactions to the Riyadh Comedy Festival came from 2026's Comedian of the Year, Gianmarco Soresi, who posted a stand-up set, which he said, I hope the one who gets in trouble is Gabriel Iglesias. He'd be like, you can't behead me, my neck's too fluffy. I think Chappelle's performing there tonight. I think it would be funny if he got in trouble because he wouldn't stop talking about trans people. And then, of course, on December 19th, Dave Chappelle released a Netflix special in which he discussed the Riyadh Comedy Festival. I was going to bounce this one too, but it fits the theme. Mark Maron, talking to Consequence of Sound, he asked, is Joe Rogan still a comic or is he some sort of lifestyle show that deals with information? Maron said, I'm not some radical progressive out in the world ranting about political impropriety. I'm a comedian. So when I said what I said about what was happening in Austin around the sphere of comics and that audience was to make a point, because they've created this audience of what was primarily not comedy fans and created this new breed of, pseudo-radicalized comedy fans around anti-woke comedy. What's interesting about comedy and what's great about it is there's an expansive bunch of voices, both vulnerable and angry. And there was this thing that was happening where they were assuming the last word about what comedy was. It was a fairly unnuanced and very hackneyed repetition of 2 or 3 ideas that were primarily right-wing talking points. So that's why I did that. It was for comedy, not for me, not for the left. It was for comedy. Okay, Maron. Here's one I bounced a couple times last week, but it fits the theme of where we've landed in this particular episode. So there's Robert De Niro, and he's sitting near Rob Schneider during the SNL 50th anniversary special. Schneider told the Epoch Times that he did see De Niro 2 rows ahead of him. He didn't want to ruin De Niro's evening because Schneider supports President Trump. However, they did run into each other. Schneider said, I bump into him, and he turns around. He has that particular expression that I think everybody knows, and he says, how could you support that guy? I've cleaned that up a little. Schneider said, you could choose not to have conflict, and instead of getting into a political debate, he said to Robert De Niro, I love you. I'm still grouchy. Not over yet. On the Facebook group, you can vote for Comedy Survivor. A lot of people voting. I'll talk about the voting in a second, but Mike posted this thing. Mike's all into this. He posted an analysis. He said he asked Gemini AI to help build a narrative to help him vote off a comic weekly. It broke them into tribes, which Mike says he can't argue against. You'll find this all in the Facebook group, Daily Comedy News Podcast group. But here's what the AI came up with. Tribe number 1, the Titans, too big to fail. Adam Sandler, Kevin Hart, Sebastian Maniscalco, and Jim Gaffigan. As for Gaffigan, the AI analyzed. Everybody likes him. He's unproblematic, reliable, and has a new bourbon special. He will float to the final 3 if you aren't careful. That's good analysis there. Tribe 2, the Roasters. High risk, high reward. The Roasters include Nikki Glaser, Seth Meyers, Sarah Silverman, Ron White. And I like this line. Ron White is threatening to retire and quit the game every week, but he never leaves. Tribe 3, the Wild Cards. The Chaos Agents include Bert Kreischer, Joe Coy, Leslie Jones, and Amy Schumer. Tribe 4, the Storytellers. John Mulaney, Atsuko Akatsuka, Tig Notaro, and Jay Leno. As for Atsuko, the AI says she's the sweet player who will stab you in the back at the final tribal council. Very good analysis there. Mike, thank you for posting that. Again, it's in the Daily Comedy News Podcast group. Andrea was wondering why Nate Bargatze wasn't on the list. When we did the nominations, nobody nominated Nate. See how the voting is going so far. Sandler, Seth, Sebastian, Sandler, Leslie. All right, I don't want to tip the scales. Go to the Facebook group, Daily Comedy News Podcast group. Scroll down. There's a cartoon image of Comedy Survivor in there. Vote someone off the island. Voting continues until end of day Thursday. I'll record an episode on Friday, which you won't hear until Monday. That's how it's going to work. Production-wise, I want to do these things on Friday. Publication-wise, they'll come out Mondays at noon as their own separate episodes. Amy Schumer does like when we talk about her. The New York Post has obtained property records that show that Amy Schumer quietly purchased a corner condominium on Central Park West for $6.25 million a year ago, buying the 3-bedroom, 3.5-bath apartment under a trust. The deal closed roughly 3 months before she listed her Brooklyn Heights townhouse, a property the Post says she would ultimately sell at a loss amid her divorce. Last One Laughing UK has announced the cast for Season 2. Great cast. If you haven't seen Last One Laughing Season 1, you should watch it. It's really funny, and it's a fun game you can play along at home because you sit there on the couch and you try not to laugh yourself, and I couldn't do it. It's very funny. I don't know all these names, but I know many of them. They are David Mitchell, all right there, it's already great. Diane Morgan, Kunk, awesome. Romesh Ranganathan, Amy Gledhill, Maisie Adam, Mel Giedroyc, hope I said your name right, Mel. I haven't seen Mel's name in print before. Alan Carr, Gabemisola Ikumello, Sam Campbell, who's fantastic, and Bob Mortner. Last One Laughing, in which a brand new set of comedians uses any means necessary to try and break their opponents, but will they do it all with a straight face? Jimmy Carr returns as your host. Over the course of the season, the comedians will use every ounce of their comedic talents to try and break their opponents without cracking up. The show is packed with comedy cameos, format twists, and surprises designed to elicit laughs from both players and viewers alike. No date yet, but that should be really good. I keep trying to imagine what a U.S. version of it would be, and maybe my brain is really small. I keep picturing like it would be like the Kreischer Segura type guys. Like I can see like Andrew Santino and Mark Normand there. I think it would be more of like that kind of scene, but still Jimmy Carr hosting. Hopefully they'll make it someday. The 2026 Comedian of the Year, Gianmarco Soresi, is in Japan. He's doing a cool tour after Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, Australia, New Zealand, and India. He told the Japan Times, social media has destroyed the fabric of society in so many ways, but it's helped me a lot personally. There was a time when, as an American comedian, you'd have to be Chris Rock or at that level to come to Asia. Gianmarco says he tries not to overload on information and instead gets a feel for a place once he arrives. I often find there's a lot of humor in just sincerely learning about something, whether it's government or a custom or some strange food that you tried. For crowd work to be good, you have to sincerely be curious, and I've always found the further away I am from home, the more curious I am, so I don't need to put it on for Japan. It'll be a lot of fun. He said he was talking about the trip with Atsuko Katsuka, who will be in Japan while Gianmarco is there. He said, we plan to go to karaoke. That'd be amazing. He asked the Japan Times, is there anything I'm not allowed to say in Japan? And explained he was advised to curse less in Singapore, and his poster was deemed to be too homoerotic for India. He said, I love being a little edgy. I love having some teeth, but those teeth vary depending on the country. What I might think is teeth might not even be funny. It could be hacky. And that is your comedy news for today. All right, I'm still kind of grouchy, sorry. It's Wednesday. It's trivia night. I got to go see the trivia guys. Hopefully there's more questions about comedy this week. There won't be. If they did that last week, this week's going to be about Ariana Grande and like the stuff I don't know. My team's just going to finish 12th. I'm not even going to try. I'm going to have the Knicks game on my phone. All right, see you tomorrow.